Afternoon, folks. This is Real with Robo. Now, I got a whole bunch of backlash on my last video where, I had to unleash the beast. And I'm not apologizing for shit I said. I'll repeat that. I am not apologizing for shit I said. Period. I'm not. Okay, there are millions of good cops out there that put their lives on the line, that have put their lives on the line before for America. And just because one instance, 2, 3 instances of bad cops pop up, now they're all bad people. I mean, you gotta ask yourself, aren't you doing exactly what you claim other people do to you? Profiling? Okay, so because they're a cop, they're bad. Because one person did that, they're all bad. I hate to throw this in the forefront, but right now, I really don't care. Rosa Parks said the reason why she sat down was because she was tired. She was tired of everything. She wasn't just tired from a hard day's work. She was tired. And I have that feeling right now. So I'm going to sit down. And I plan to make my throne out of your feelings. Okay? Number one, you say that because black people commit most of the crime in the United States of America, that we're not supposed to look at black people and say, oh, well, he might be a criminal or she might be a criminal, because most of the muggings are done by black people. We're not supposed to worry about, hey, it's late at night, here comes a black person. And yet that's exactly what you're doing to cops. Because one cop nailed on somebody's neck. Now they all bad guys and they're all going to kneel on your neck and do horrible things. I've heard this over the week and it sickens me. Well, you being white, you don't never have to tell your, children, your sons, that they have to worry about cops because, your whiteness, your white privilege. Really? I have black children, and never once have I told any of my black children that they have to worry about cops. Unless they do one thing. Commit a crime. Okay? And my son was put out because he is involved in the justice system. And he did reach for a cop's weapon and got tased. Did I throw a cow about it? No, because that's what it gets. And that's exactly what I told him. And so we fell out for a few days, but then he came to realize, I don't care if you're in jail and you're my child. Don't call me to bail you out. Do not do it. All my children know this. You go to jail, you get in trouble, you do something that's against the law. I have raised you to be law-abiding citizens. That's yo ass, Jack. I'm not putting my house up for your problems and your actions, and I'm not taking responsibility for them either. But let's get back to the nitty-gritty of this. Everybody is vilifying cops, and yet now we have something to look at and compare. In that one area called Chaz, Capitol Hill asshat zone, or whatever they call it, I don't know, assessment for mental health zone, they have no cops. What's going on there? They have a quote-unquote security force that abuses their power. And when they realized that they were being videotaped, they stopped what they were doing. The mayor, the governor, the whoever calls this an area of peace and love. And yet crime has gone up 210% in that area. Come on now. And what's even more great is that someone's going to have to pay the piper because they're using city water, city electricity. And if I were the city, I'd cut that shit off. Because capitalism. Also, you know, you think about it and they whine and cry that, you know, borders should be open. Yet they've got fences and blockades up saying that you're now entering into this area. And whatever rules in that area are, they apply. How is that different from our border patrol and our southern border and our northern border? And their rules. You know what I mean? And then on the inside, you're talking about racism. This is the perfect example of who's starting this shit and carrying on this crap in America. Perfect example. Because I was watching a video that had a Native American, one of my brothers speaking, saying white people give black people and people of color $10 when you leave this zone. I'm like, okay, why only white people? If this was truly about peace, love, unbiasedness, everybody would be pulling their money for everything that the community needs. But we see what this corrupt area is doing. And it's funny because it's like a magnet for all the people that are causing crap in America. Okay? This is like a petri dish of America's disease. Look at it. They're saying no borders, yet they have borders. They're saying no cops, yet they have a security force. They're saying cops brutalize them, yet what do their security force do? And you know, they're asking white people to secure the area. Like my husband was a security guard for almost all of his life. And even when he was in the Corps, he worked with security. And I'm like, you don't want that man in charge of your security. Because number one, he would not allow the crime to continue. He would not allow things to go the way they're going. And he definitely would not allow the hatred that's in that petri dish of America's disease. They cry about racism, yet every white person in there is forced to bow down, forced to give up their money, forced to do this, that, and the other thing. And what gets me, that makes me laugh really hard, is that they threw the police out, and yet they're still calling 911. Why? You have a police force in there. I thought your ways were better. An all-black police force. So they should be able to enact justice, but on a sensitive level. And unfortunately, the reality of it is this police force that they have are more brutal than any cop could ever be in America. They beat people down, they hold people down, they put their knees on their necks, they restrain them, and only when they're on camera does it stop. So really, they're not a police force. They're more like a tyrannical military. And that's another thing. A lot of people are saying that the military is bad because they came in to reinforce the law. The military has nothing to do with the law. Their oath is to protect the Constitution from foreign and domestic terrorists. So when the riots were on and the military was unleashed, they weren't fighting against patriots, you stupid Seattle mayor. They were fighting against domestic terrorists. Because what do riots and looting do? Terrorizes the community. That's an equivalent to terrorists. Another thing that caught me this week is people are now starting to see my point of view. They're like, hey, BLM should be labeled a terrorist organization. Far beyond it for me to say they should also be labeled a hate group, an extremist group. Because if you look at their machinations, you will see that there are absolutely no white people involved. No other colored people involved. There are only one type of people involved: criminals. And I'm not saying white people can't be criminals because, well, you know, we corner the market in serial killing. So, just to let you know, that's not what I was saying, and please don't try and twist my words because I'm not the one. I am tired of this. I am tired of being told every day, you're racist, you're racist, you're racist. And the type of person that I am, I'm defiant, and I will turn around and be racist just to show you what real racism looks like. However, BLM, they beat white people up. At almost every one of their protests, somebody has died. They promote their cause, their quote-unquote mission, through fear, terror, and subjugation. And so if you think for a minute that I'm going to bow down and kiss your fucking feet, you're wrong. Because number one, my daddy didn't fight for me to bow down and kiss anyone's feet, nevertheless yours. And believe me, a lot of people have came to me and said, why don't you go to some of these protests? Yeah, because I want to get lynched. Because I'll be the first one, if they ask me my opinion, I'll tell them my opinion. I'll tell them the truth. I'll tell them the facts and the evidence. And I'll blow their damn agenda and their propaganda and their damn narrative out of the water. Because it is more likely for a white person to get shot and killed by the cops than it is for a black person to get shot and killed by the cops. When you say unarmed, let's look at that. How many criminals do you know commit crimes that are unarmed? Quite frankly, in my opinion, if we had a police state like Russia does, bet you the crime rate would stop. Because in Mother Russia, they don't care what your excuse is. Once you have been deemed a criminal, you have no rights. And if the cops beat the hell out of you, well, I guess you shouldn't have committed a crime. And then, in that sense, you could call police what you call them and villainize them the way they are villainized. You see, people like me who have spent their whole lives being a law-abiding citizen, and when I did have to commit crimes, I was slick about it. So, really, advice on that part, get better at what you do if you're going to make it a career. Or don't do it at all. But seriously, I have never been to jail, never been arrested. Never. Not ever. And you know what? If I could do it being gone through what I went through, anyone can. You see, a lot of people look at me and say, oh, well, she's white. She had white privilege all her life. Okay, so I'm going to tell you the truth. Up to the age of 14, sure, I can go with that. We had enough to eat. We had clothes on our backs. We had enough to pay the bills. And my daddy was in the Air Force. Okay? Typical white family. But when I turned 15, I was in a mental hospital because I lost my mind because my dad died. That was on me. And then I went to different kind of group homes. And if you know anything about the system, they don't care if you're black or white or green or purple. At the age of 18, they throw you out on the streets with nothing more than what's on your back and whatever shit you own. So I was homeless for a while. Then I got my first apartment when I was pregnant with my oldest son. And that apartment was located in not the greatest place in the world. Okay? Not the greatest place in the world. 32nd and Hollis in Oakland, California. And I have moved to different parts of the country and of the Bay Area. And I have found my way to Mississippi. where, yeah, again, I got a home. And it was a typical white family home. But I can honestly say my relationship at that point in time did not work out. And I moved out. And I moved back into the ghetto. And there was a murder right outside my back door. And for my children's sakes, we moved. And I've watched each of these communities that I've lived in. I literally watched a nice place turn to trash and crime-ridden because thugs, criminals, hookers, and those type of people moved in. And no, they weren't white. Because honestly, there have only been 2 times that I've lived in a white neighborhood. 3 times, because my group home was in a white neighborhood. Anyway, then I moved to the place I'm currently staying at. And I've watched neighbors come and go. And most of their pain, when they got evicted, was self-inflicted. Because they decided to be criminals. And I'm not saying that in Mississippi there was no crime, because for God's sakes, a couple months of that time, we lived next door to meth labs. The white community has their own problems. And then, of course, the child molester wanted to move in right next door on the other side. And I had a problem with that. But instead of going out there and killing him and doing illegal shit, I did it the legal beagle way. And I won. Because yes, the cops told me, well, they have to live somewhere. And I said, somewhere can be construed as the bottom of the ocean. And they realized at that point I was not going to let that go. And so I read the law. I educated myself on the law about child molesters. And I used the law to force him out of our neighborhood. Because I don't care if they hunt in their own neighborhoods or not. I'm not having that shit around my children. Period. I'm not having murders around my children. Period. And if I have to call the cops and become a quote-unquote snitch, then so be it. But I have standards. And I love the community that I'm in. There is absolutely no one in this complex that is nice to me. And it's because I'm white. Except for one person. And his excuse is, no, man, wait, they cool for white people. And you think we're racist? But I don't cry about that. So if you have any problem with any of my videos, I encourage you, leave a comment. I have no problem telling my viewers and any viewers how I feel. And I'm not going to cut the mustard. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. I'm going to come at you real. The black community does not suffer because of white people. The black community suffers because of the people they elect to run their cities, to run their communities. They suffer because they won't work with the police to stop crime. They suffer because, oh, we live in fear all the time. You live in fear because you allow criminals to run free. and you have no standards. Well, it's not our fault we can't be like white families. Why not? Why not? Why don't you get married before you have kids? I wasn't married when I had kids and I suffered. Did I blame it on anybody? No, because that was my actions. And I took responsibility for them. And I am absolutely disgusted that I saw a Native American, my brother, standing up there buying into this bullshit when Native Americans are supposed to be wiser than that. It sickens me. Get your shit together. Don't worry about my shit. My shit's together. I'm ready. I'm loaded for bear, so bring it whenever you want it. However, you need to stop listening to the narrative and look at that Chaz place or whatever. That's what they want for America. Crime is 200% in there. Police brutality from their security forces, borders to keep people out. No. Tell you what, we have borders for a reason. We are a sovereign country. And if it were left up to me, I'd take a group of SAS, British SAS, and American Special Forces, go in there and clean that whole fucking place out. And hand it right back over to the people that are supposed to have it. The business owners and the police department. Because that's patriotism. Loving your country more than yourself is patriotism. Loving your American people more than you love yourself. Being concerned for their general welfare, not your own, is patriotism. And patriotism just doesn't pop up overnight. It is a learned and a constant flow. In order to have patriotism, you have to love the foundation of America. You have to love America, its people, and its laws, and support the good guys. That petri dish of disease is not filled with patriots. It's filled with terrorists, hate groups, and a bunch of idiotic assholes. But that's what they want for America. And I, for one, am not going to have that, and I will stand and fight. Hear me now. You think I'm about you? You have the wrong thought process, and you better think again. And that's Real with Robo.